Hey guys, welcome to another session of RBTL, or Reading Between the Lines. This one's coming out a bit later than my usual. I was streaming tonight and people coming on the stream and say, hey, what do you think about the Substat Reroll system? What do you think about ML Lilibet? ML Lilibet, I'm going to talk about her in her own video as I usually do. This one, we're going to remain with the exclusive equipment. I'm not going to talk about the story stuff, the return of the Valentine pets. We're just gonna stick to the Substat Reroll and the EEs. So the big chunk will be that. That will be the second part of this video. First part is this, if you guys want my thoughts on it. Pavel and Clarissa EEs. Clarissa remains to be looking like a PvE hero, and Pavel a solid PvP hero. He was already good, but it's just that I think out of the cleave options that people had, a lot of people didn't build them. For champion and legend players, I know of a lot of people, actually like a handful of people that have built Pavel. I myself had invested into him in terms of Mola. His gear requirements are getting high, especially if you're going to use him in RTA. He cannot rely on a CR booster like Oxlos, Athletica. He needs to be self-sufficient. Luckily, he is a speed scaling DPS, so that most people who actually use him and have like monster builds are building like 270 plus speed Pavels, or that was before the crit rate. Now you have up to 12% crit rate on the EE itself. That is at least on average about 4 rolls of your 3 to 4 rolls of crit rate that you could put into speed, which is what he will need now. I think you should be able to hit 285. Like these are like some of the bars. I think you have to hit 285 speed at least on him. Now with the crit rate being lower, the standard, definitely could run him on a crit rate neck. I think crit set, speed set, and 285 speed. You should be able to get decent amount of attack mixed with crit damage if you have, you know, high roll gear and very focused substat gear. But that's what he'll need. The speed scaling on him is not like as high as like Assassin Sid, but it definitely does help, especially when you're hitting those 270s, 280 range in terms of speed. He'll do a lot of damage since he self buffs, attack buffs. And now with his EE in terms of the skill, I mean, there's a lot to choose from. I don't even know which one I would like the most. I think different conditions can give him different outcomes in terms of the EE. So for example, like the first one, Storm Bullet, which is the S2, dispels 2 debuffs from the caster before the skill effect when using Storm Bullet. So for example, like let's say someone puts an unbuffable on him, or let's say Cerise is pretty popular opener right now, or like Briar Witch, right? Like you hit the debuff. If he's quick enough, he'll be able to shake them off completely. So it dispels the 2 debuff. So it could be Briar Witch's attack down with unbuffable, which could, you know, usually it would cripple a DPS, but Pavel can shake it off with that EE, and then also have the attack buff come on. Just notice that the writing is that the debuffs go away first, so that the unbuffable won't get in the way of his own self attack buff. Like Cerise, speed down with restrict. The speed down will also diminish some of his damage because he is speed scaling damage dealer. So again, that becomes very, very nice. So to shake off like minor debuffs, that is not a provoke, a stun, a silence, or something like that, you'll be able to get that. That's very, very nice. And Storm Bullet version 2, increase the attack of the ally except the caster with the highest attack for 2 turns after using Storm Bullet. So even if Pavel is the highest attack, it would go to the next highest attack hero and give him an attack buff. That could be really interesting as well. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but Pavel usually isn't he isn't like a solo DPS type of hero. He's a very, very good hero for others. I mean, it could be for CDOM boosting. Like I said, the speed build for Pavel, if you don't rely on Athletica, you don't rely on Oxlots, you can still draft a CDOM in there. And CDOM usually does come with pretty high attack and high crit damage, of course. So if you use Storm Bullet, which is an AoE attack, and let's say you have multiple souls, or you use CDOM's 20 souls, he'll gain an extra turn and be able to, you know, nuke someone out with his S3 after the S2, but he applies an attack buff for CDOM, also pushing her up with that AoE. So very, very nice. And then Destructive Pursuit is the S3, grants the caster skill nullifier once after using Destructive Pursuit. So one thing with Pavel is that, you know, my experience using him like S2 into S3 and then he's kind of left vulnerable for a couple turns. His S1 does blind, which is very, very nice. Gels well with like, you know, some other heroes like Remnant Violet and stuff like that, who, you know, really would love that enemy being blind or whatever. So, but the other thing is that like usually because he's fast, he is also squishy. So that skill null could have more potential. I personally like the Storm Bullet scenarios, because most of the time you're going to use Storm Bullet before you use Destructive Pursuit in most any given fight, I would say, regardless if you have souls or not, just because of that attack buff on him for the next turn. But maybe there's a case or a scenario where you want to do Destructive Pursuit to protect him for one turn before he uses Storm Bullet. So who knows? In my opinion, all three are actually really, really good. So if you're a Pavel user or you want to use Pavel, I would say it's actually worthwhile to eventually craft when this enters into the Sanctuary. Eventually craft all three at 12% crit rate. I could definitely see all three used, but again, it's because Pavel's not very, very popular hero. So for example, like Landy, Ravi, Spectani, I know I'm talking about limited heroes as well, and MLs in there, but in terms of like those, like if you're like kind of like a newer player, you know, they would ask like the experienced RTA player or a streamer is like, hey, which of these DPS should I build? No one really says build Pavel. That's where Pavel is going to suffer a bit, because Pavel's gear requirement actually takes very, very specific gear. It's not to say that the other ones don't, but his is like absolutely like speed, crit rate, crit damage, attack. Like that's all you want, and you know we all have issues rolling enough speed DPS gear. Okay. Clarissa, I don't want to spend too much time on this because from my like reading of this is like clearly, you know, push more for PvE, probably for newer players. None of her EEs, or she doesn't have a dev buff, really make her into like a usable PvP hero at this point. We're too far into the meta to see her come back, I think. But PvE definitely. So if you have her built or have her invested in the past, now Harsh Lesson, I think is this one, decreased defense break by 15% chance, and then the other one being inflict bleeding for 2 turns, or 1 bleeding effect for 2 turns. And then the Hysteric, which is the S3, deals damage, you know, for 10% more. It's pretty, like, even for a PvE hero, I feel that this is kind of like like I will probably forget about this EE, but you know, maybe I'm wrong. She is I forgot what star sign she is, but she has very high base attack. That's all I remember. Back in the old days, the very, very old days, she was like as good as Green Vodrid, but that was like way before like we had Hunt 11 actually. Yeah, even Hunt 11 we didn't even have it. That's when Clarissa was actually okay. But anyways, that's my thoughts on this. I think let's move down a bit. Tenebria coming back with drop rate up. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Yeah, let's move to the next portion, which is the Substat Reroll. Alright guys, so this is the second part in the I'll just call it Substat Reroll for short, and let you guys know what I think about it. So if you guys were, you know, attending my Twitch streams and had heard my thoughts on it, I think I spilled it in a couple videos, that when the Substat Reroll thing was like considered like about a month ago, we heard like hints about this being worked. I was saying that I was really worried about it because I was worried about how it would affect the power creep. I would say that my worries are kind of, you know, it's not really there anymore. I feel that this system that they have come up with seems to be a pretty good one. It's like just enough. It's enough difficulty, and it's enough limit. So you can't just get like the best gear or whatever. I think that's good. It would just make salty gear less salty, which is really good. I mean, I myself have experienced really salty crafting sessions as well. Like, you know, 30 million gold, whatever, 20,000 crafting mats, and come out with nothing, or maybe 1 or 2 pieces that are usable, and then that's it. RNG is RNG, I get it, but this will definitely help players from also deciding on what kind of gear they want to keep, actually. This will definitely change how people keep their gear. and it will definitely help heroic gear. If anything, I think it will help heroic gear more than epic, although in epic's case, every single thing helps in epic, but this system really helps bring up the usefulness of heroic gear. As everybody knows that heroic gear, you always have that one RNG on the plus 12 enhancement where you can get a random substat. If it's not like a DPS, you might get an effect resistance roll, and then that could be really sad, right? But now like all your DPS gear that has effect resistance in it, you can convert it to a usable substat, which there's always enough usable substats for DPS gear. Either you convert it to flat attack or whatever it's missing, crit rate, crit damage, or percent attack, right? Depends on, you know, what the equipment is, but that's just an example. So I think that this system has really good potential. It's definitely a good one. I don't know how this system can still have haters. I would say I'm the most pessimistic towards this change before, and I even think that this is pretty good, pretty balanced. I like it. So that's that, but let's get into the details. So one substat will be selectable, limited plus 15 enhanced equipment for all levels. This is pretty important. They didn't say that it's limited to dropped gear or crafted gear. So like, does that mean that the Abyss Lifesteal 88s, are you able to reroll the substats there? Because I know myself that I have a couple pieces that could benefit from a reroll. Like effectiveness, for example, on some of the lifesteal. It depends on the hero you eventually put it on. But I know that, you know, there's always going to be one piece of your lifesteal gear from Abyss that's not going to be fully optimal for the hero you really want to put it on. So that itself is like a question. I mean, the 88 gear, it seems that the raid drops from the bosses, and what about the armors we purchase, right? Like the immunity set armor. Like, can you imagine that? That could be pretty cool. The immunity set armor is already really good, and but just imagine you can put like effectiveness on the crit rate slot, you know, for like a ambitious Tywin or something like that. You could put crit damage on that crit rate slot too, or you could put it on a defense slot, HP slot. Like, there's a lot of possibilities with just the 88 gear itself. No, not even talking about the 90s. I already know that, you know, I have so many pieces that have some effect resistance in it that is like surely a DPS gear, but that effect resist usually, you know, prevents me from maybe 90ing that gear. This system will come in handy. So it's not, again, like I said, I don't think it's gonna be OP, but it's definitely gonna make a lot of gear more usable, which means your roster is gonna be more healthy, more robust. You're gonna bring a lot more heroes into the RTA land. But you know, that's a subject in and of itself, is that most people stick to a handful of RTA heroes and they don't go beyond what they've built. But I mean, hey, part of the game is building heroes, so I'm all for that. I think it has a lot of potential. Acquire and use a substat change stone for each set and substat. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So specific sets for specific stones. So it's not gonna come by pretty easy. I don't think it's gonna come by really easy. And we'll talk about the drop in a bit. But change substat will be within a certain range depending on the number of the enhancements made. Okay. So this part's a bit confusing with the mix of slide 2. So on the stream, it was saying that each roll that you roll, let's say in the effectiveness slot for image on the right side, you're going to get diminishing returns when you reroll the substat. But although the right side image seems to be 1-for-1 in terms of like 14% effectiveness, you can potentially roll 10% to 14% HP if you're selecting the HP one. Again, we're talking about the right side image. That would be 1-for-1 roll for effectiveness. But in the second image, the 456 health, flat health on the left side, rolling 3 to 5 means that it only has 1 roll of speed. But 456 is not 1 roll of flat health. Like there was the initial flat health, but it seems that there's at least 2 or 3 rolls in there. So I'm not quite sure how those two work. If you guys know what I'm talking about, see the note on top says changing the substat ensures to grant the specified type of substat. However, this will grant a lower stat than the players can benefit from a regular enhancement. So is there a way of nerfing it? And I'm gonna take their word for it. Is there a way of nerfing it? But it doesn't seem to be the case in the image here. That's why I'm kind of confused. So I think that's gonna be, you know, there might be speculation up in there. Maybe I'm misreading something, misunderstanding something. But regardless, if you're re-rolling a substat with higher rolls or more rolls, you are going to benefit more from it. It's not going to reset you. Like, let's say if you roll like 3 times into health, it's not going to reset you to like 1 defense if you so choose to change that substat. But again, the values don't really make sense, so I'm not quite sure. Like, the consistency doesn't logically make sense to me. I know that in this image, you're actually looking at, I think you're looking at a greater enhancement versus the lesser enhancement stone. I think that's the image here, but the original image on the left doesn't actually make sense to me. It doesn't really make sense to me. So like I said, the conversion of the flat health is not 1 roll. That's not 1 roll of flat health. Like, I don't think so, at least. It looks like at least 2 rolls of flat health. And then, but the speed you're getting is 1 roll, technically. 3 to 5 is technically 1 roll of speed. And then on the right side, and if you use the greater one, you can get that, you know, you can use the same substat and you can get a, you know, better speed roll out of it. In that case, I think that looks like 2 speed. I don't know, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, that it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it does make sense exactly. Regardless, once the stone is used on equipment, only the subset that was initially changed can be changed again. This is to prevent you from completely changing the gear. And so therefore, if you are a player and you're looking for gear, you got to make sure you have 3 usable substats. That's basically it. If you only have 2 usable substats and 2 are like really bad, so for example, a DPS gear with 2 DPS substats, but you got a flat HP, which you know it will never benefit any of your heroes. I'm just saying as an example. And the other one is effect resist, then that piece of gear is complete garbage. Because even you can only convert or re-roll 1 substat in that piece of gear. Yeah, maybe the flat health would be good, but let's say you have like 150 flat health or whatever in it, which doesn't really convert to being anything, and you want to get rid of the resist instead. So you end up just kind of handicapping yourself. So you definitely, like, whether you're rolling heroic gear or epic gear, you got to at least have 3 usable substats for that kind of hero or that role. You just got to make sure that's the case. So yeah, so you know, I don't think anybody's gonna get like a 20 speed piece, but I think if someone does roll maximum all health or whatever, even though in that case it depends on the substats, you might not want to roll speed there, but we could still potentially see some pretty fast pieces, I think. Again, I don't know. I think the estimate that people are making is that you're always 1 roll less than what you could potentially roll in terms of the substat reroll. So for example, if you rolled 3 speed and you wanted to change that speed to HP for some reason, I don't know. I'm talking about 3 times into speed. Oh, actually no, I should put this, a better example would be this. 3 times into HP and you wanted to roll it into speed, I think it would only give you a maximum of 2 speed rolls within the variance of the possible speed. So again, as you can see in the right side gear, 5 to 6, so there's a variation between what you could possibly boost from the original. The 2 types of stones, you get a lesser stone and a greater stone. I think this is the next slide. Will give you a different amount of substats. Of course, as we saw in the images there, the lesser stone gave you lower amount of substats, potential lower substats. The greater ones gave you higher potential substats. In any case, there's no reason to keep a piece of gear on the lesser one unless you're just rushing to change the substat. What it looks like is that it will remember the original value of it, the roll, and re-rolling the substat, even though it's re-rolled before, won't lower it anymore. So it doesn't get worse and worse and worse every time you re-roll it, but after the first re-roll, the max potential of the stat is already determined. If you roll a lesser stone, substat change stone, if you roll a lesser one into a substat, let's say HP for speed, if you roll into a greater one and you still select to choose speed, you will get more out of it. But I think what's happening in the code is that it calculates the max potential after the stone change from the greater one, not the lesser one. It said that if you apply the lesser one, you just get capped, at least for a while. So ultimately, every single person will want their gear to be using the greater grade stones and not the lesser one. I don't know if that was confusing. It made sense in my mind. The stones will not take any space in the inventory, which is really good, and the stones will be rewarded when clearing expedition level 2 and level 3. So that's important to note as well, is that level 2 will give you the lesser stones, expedition 3 will give you the greater ones. Now this is a big subject as well, is that the friends you keep is gonna make a big difference. I have not been good. I'm gonna say this for my own community, they know it. I got people who come to my stream and just like, yo, add me on your friends list. I hit expedition 3s. These friends all of a sudden have more value. And we gotta face it, we gotta face the facts. It's not that if you get kicked off my friends list, it's I hate you, but it's just that this is a game, and the friends list now is becoming more and more important than it was before. Before it was just like grinding story. If everybody has an RB set as their rep hero, it's gonna make your farming easier. But the farming can be done solo now, more likely than not. So the expeditions now become a very, very big part of the game, a central aspect of the game. Yeah. So two things. For myself, I need to start looking into expedition teams, expedition 3 teams. At my point of the game, it's absolutely a waste of time to go for expedition level 2. Expedition 3 is now the future. The one thing is that though, I didn't include the slide here, is that expeditions are going to be nerfed slightly. So monsters are going to have less HP. The effect in terms of like the turns to get to their berserk or whatever is going to be more, I think, or something. Either way, it's supposed to be easier. I'm putting that in air quotes, but it's definitely a nerf. That being said, that doesn't change the fact that people will want to now load up friends that can actually efficiently hit expedition 3s, because everybody benefits from it. Especially this chase now. Then when this stone, the substat change stone, comes into the game, it's going to be the next chase. It's just like the I-90s. The whales are the ones that can, you know, farm forever and hunt forever to get posters and have like the best, you know, the top players hitting. They're all gonna benefit the most out of it, and they're gonna get their gear all substat rolled quicker than all the free-to-play players or the people who are, you know, kind of struggling with content right now. That's just gonna be the fact, and it's just the way the gacha system works. And so I'm not gonna say that it's a bad thing, but that is what people should expect. I personally, you know, because I do account reviews and, you know, I'm always looking at, you know, what top players have. I'm always impressed with everybody's, you know, gear. It's gonna be really good to see, very encouraging. At least it's another carrot on the stick, so to speak. If you put it in front of you, you're gonna chase that carrot. This is another carrot. It's a pretty good carrot. The selection chest will be provided in the Expedition Depot from April, and granting the substat change stone by equipment set. Yeah, so I mean, one thing that if Smilegate or anyone in the dev team is watching this video, and up to this point is about 30 minutes now, if you watch it up to this point, something you can consider is to enlarge the friends list. Enlarge the friends list. I heard that. This is not my big brain idea. I heard that from my own community. They're like, expeditions. This is before the substat change stone came out, but they were just like, yeah, why won't they give us more friends? And I think most gacha games do eventually expand the friends list. So I think right now maximum is 40. It would be nice to have 50. It's like an additional 10 is quite a lot, because you could potentially, you know, have friends from different parts of the world, so they will be able to hit your expeditions at different times of the day. As this is still mainly an idle game, unless you're an RTA. It's an idle game really, so people who work and stuff like that, they're farming all day, they put out the posters, they're hoping that their expeditions get done, or they could do it themselves, but if they're working, again, it's always auto hunt, or if they have an auto expedition team. And so that's just like an idea. Hopefully the devs think about that as well. But for sure, I do like the fact that the expeditions now, not only are you going for the reforge mats, these stones, at least for a couple months, are going to, I would say, are going to cause players to hit expeditions a lot more, even beyond the monthly reward thing. I know there's some people that just don't hit expeditions anymore after they collect all the rewards, the 2,000 points or whatever, till the gold transmit stone. I know players that don't do it, but this will actually incentivize players to keep doing it, which in Smilegate's case, in Epic 7's case, this is good because it forces people to keep hunting for more posters because they always want better gear. So regardless, I think this is a healthy change. It's not a power creep in my opinion. It does lower the RNG, it does lower the molding, and I think for the next while, players are going to be looking into their own inventory and seeing the potential delicious equipment that they can get out of it. I know myself, like I said, I have a couple pieces that could definitely benefit from this, and I can't wait to show you guys that. Anyways, regardless, this has been a long RBTL. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my thoughts on it. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about this system. As you guys know, I do read every single comment that you guys post. I don't always react to them, but I actually do read them all. And I'm gonna end this for the video recording. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys on the next Reading Between the Lines.